Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So today is actually Chinmayananji's Mahasamadhi Day. Very special for all the Chinmaya Mission people, and they call it Aradhana Day. So we're going to do a very nice shloka on that day, so that's really great. So it's verse 35 of chapter 6. And so we saw that Arjun had a doubt. In last two verses, he talked about that, okay, whatever this equanimity yoga that you are mentioning, I don't see it lasting too long. So he's, in some ways, he's challenging Krishna. He's his friend also. And so long term, it's not going to work, basically, he's saying. And then Krishna Bhagavan didn't say anything. So he added that, hey, look, the mind is like this, and he gave all these few adjectives to the mind. And he said that it's chanchala, means it's restless, pramati, turbulent, balvat, very strong, dridam, unyielding, like a hurricane winds, and you're telling me that to control it doesn't sound practical at all. So that's what his question was. So now Krishna Bhagavan speaks, and that's what verse 35 is. I'm going to chant and then we'll see more details about it. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sanshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Gruhyate. So the word meanings, sanshayam, undoubtedly, no doubt about it. Mahabaho, he's addressing Arjun, mighty armed. Big compliment he's giving him. And we'll see why, because there's a lot of psychology involved over here. Manaha, the mind. Durnigraham, difficult to control. The mind is difficult to control. Chalam, very restless. So gave another word. Chalta hi rehta hai, jaise Hindi mein bolte hain na. Chup nahi baith sakta. Abhyasena, by practice, but Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, then he addresses him two different words. Just like when, you want to get somebody to listen to you, उसको जरा प्यार से एक दो तीन शब्द बोलते हैं हम लोग, बच्चे लोग को भी ऐसे करते हैं हम लोग. मेरा राजा बेटा ये वो बड़े वो सुनेगा हमारी बात. उसको कौनते है बोला. वैराग्य, by dispassion. Cha and gruhyate, restrained. So let's see. We'll see what Nikhilananji and all has to say, and then we'll read Swamiji's commentary. So firstly, he's calling him Mahabaho. Oh, mighty arm. Because Arjun बोला ना ये मेरे से नहीं हो सकता है, So उसको बोला you are so strong and you're saying like this. So उसमें थोड़ा taunting भी है और थोड़ा ये भी है. Yes, you can do. अगर तू इतना महाबा है तो कुछ भी कर सकता है. Like, so there are double psychology involved over here. One is थोड़ा सा taunting उसको दे रहे हैं कि भाई, इतना महाबा हो के how you're saying you can't do it. So just think about it that way. Okay. So then immediately agrees with it. Because अगर कोई बहुत resist कर रहा हो ना और तुम उसको अगर उसके opposite जाओगे तो वो बिल्कुल तुम्हारी बात नहीं सुनेगा. He'll shut you out. So Krishna Bhagavan is using this psychology. I think he is the greatest psychiatrist, if you ask me. Everybody should learn from him. Somebody told me, they said that they get all the inspiration, because this psychiatrist told me that they get the inspiration from, they may not go and tell their patient about it, but for herself, she gets it from here, all the tips. So, uske saath agree kiya ki haan, mind is chanchal, and all the four things that he said, turbulent, unyielding, restless, and and all that, everything is true. But there's immediately the but is there. Just like Arjun said, oh, you great yoga, but, so here Krishna Bhagavan is saying, is all that, but the solution is there. So, Nikhilananji always comes up with very great example. He's saying, just imagine like a big mighty train. धड़ 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 कर चल रही है, उसको अगर रोकना हो तो कोई बड़े फोर्स से तो नहीं रोक सकते तुम उसको, कभी नहीं रोकेगी वो. तो उसको क्या करना होता है, एक बटन दबाओ जो उसमें लगा हुआ है, रुक जाएगी धीरे धीरे, right? That's exactly, so that's the critical point that we have to learn, that, mind may be all crazy and nobody needs to tell us about our own mind, how it prosecutes us. So how to control is, you need the technique, that's all it is. And then he gave example of an elephant also, which was really great, because India that's one of the biggest things that we see animal-wise. Huge elephant, but India we are so used to the tamed elephant, right? Like you go near them, you feed them, and they will put, like I remember they put their soon on your head to give Ashirwad. Near the mandirs they do it in South. And we got so used to it. But if you really see the nature of elephant, the wild ones, if they put one foot on you, you dead. Right? They're that powerful, So, but he was saying that how उसको अंकुश बोलते हैं, एक छोटा सा इंस्ट्रूमेंट होता है, वो महावत बैठ जाता है उसके ऊपर और फिर वो अंकुश से उसको कंट्रोल करता है. उसको एक क्रिटिकल जगह पे उसको जरा सा पोक करेगा तो फिर वो कंट्रोल में आ जाता है. We don't know about all these things, but the people who tame the elephant, they know how to do it. So what he was trying to say is that elephant is so big, but a small ankush can control it. Basically what he was trying to say, which was a very good point, was that we have to learn the right technique, the right switch of mind which we need to have. Then only it will get control. So what are the two techniques that he mentioned? Because what is the bottom line? That's what, like my husband is here, he always says, what is the bottom line of all that you're saying? So here the bottom line he's saying how to control, because the subject is vast, but he brought it down to two different points. And they are loaded points. So we will probably have to do a lot of contemplation, what exactly they mean by it. And the two words are abhyas and vairagya. Okay? So this, you have to just remember it. Anytime we think that, oh, I can't control my mind, say Krishna Bhagavan said abhyas and vairagya, and then we have to see what he means. Today we'll contemplate upon it, what it means, and that hopefully it'll stay in our mind what it means. So abhyas, so everybody knows. If you translate it into English, it's practice. Practice makes perfect. They always say that. If you don't know how to bike, you don't know how to swim, and I don't know anything, then you learn, and shuru mein kuch nahi aayega, then you keep doing, you get good at it. And at our age, we all are good at something. Rolling chapatis, somebody wakes me up in the middle of the night, I can do it now. So, whatever, abhyas. Pehle humko kuch nahi aata tha. So that's what it is. So, vairagya is what? Dispassion and non-attachment. And we will go much more in detail with vairagya because there are a lot of different aspects to it. So these are the twofold technique. And it's not just Krishna Bhagavan, but later on, a lot of other great rishis also kind of express exactly the same thing in Patanjali Yoga Sutra also. Exactly same thing. That, the mind can control. He's a great master of mind, Patanjali. And he said abhyas and vairagya are two things, he also said. And then he gave another beautiful technique that a lot of us do follow. Kamla ji is not here, she follows it. And we already know the 8 limbs of yoga. That also falls in this. Yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi. Systematically you follow, again the mind will control, and the abhyas and vairagya are inherent in these two things. So going more in detail here, what is abhyas and vairagya? So go back to what we learned about mind. Mind is a flow of thought. So when we observe our mind, we will see that there are certain thoughts and certain emotions in our mind, they get constantly repeated. Without us thinking about it, just keeps coming up, it's like the way he was explaining, Dilliwale Swami, that it is like a fingerprint of each person. Each person has their unique habits and thinking and emotions, and that's what makes our personality too, actually, So, and the mind moves if you don't contemplate and think about it and put some halt to it. If you just leave it alone, it will flow in that direction continuously. Keep doing it. And it's a certain type of habits, and where it's coming from, we have learned this in Bhagavad Gita, and all of you know about it already. Coming from the past life called vasanas, right? That impressions from so many lives, and the new impressions piling up on us from this life. पहले ही भरा हुआ है, ऊपर से और हम पाइल करते जा रहे हैं. चाइल्डहुड से, किसी ने बोला कि मदर वूम से भी शुरू हो जाता है. Like impressions start getting, and that's why they always say, we didn't know, at least I didn't know at that time, if I have to do it all over again, I'll do it so differently. When you are pregnant, you just do certain things that you want the child to develop, keep in that mode and all that. And, people who have done it makes a difference. There's a whole science in it. So mind will keep thinking in those direction, that vasanas that we have done. So you can call it habits also. And he's saying that, he was explaining, the Swamiji was explaining that how many factors are involved in it. Parent, brother, sister, of where we live, what food we eat, type of idea we encourage, because sometimes some bad food habits we can pick it up from childhood. And later on you realize, oh my God, this is not such a great habit, it's affecting my health. But adat se lachar. Like, I was talking to somebody about meat eating and all that. And I'm not judging anybody and all that, not from that perspective. But if you want to contemplate about, meat eating versus vegetarianism, by nature, children, very small children, they love animals. Because they find something very sweet in them, and most of them are not afraid of animal. We are the one who put fear into them. वो तो जाके उनको छुएंगे, करेंगे, and they find very love. अगर किसी बच्चे को बोलो ना, वो छोटे बच्चे को, that what you are eating is killed animal, वो कभी नहीं खाएगा. Instinctively, I'm just saying, But by the time they grow up, it becomes a habit. Just these are the things that we have to contemplate upon, that food we eat and all, we pick up all these bad habits, and then Nikhilanand was saying that how even Sant Gyaneshwar said that हम लोग को एक कोई क्या कहते हैं, इष्ट देवता हम बनाते हैं, राइट? कि भाई हमारे इंडिया में तो कितने सारे, किसी को शिव जी पसंद है, किसी को कृष्ण भगवान, किसी को देवी एंड ऑल दैट. ही सेइंग वो भी पास्ट लाइफ का इंप्रेशन होता है. Some past life may we have done the sadhana, and we just take the affinity right away. And sometimes when I go to Hare Krishna temple, I see these people very, very young, 15-year-old, 17, 18, they get connected to Krishna. And they're born in Christian family. They're nothing to do with it. But ek baar suna to bas. Not everybody gets like that, right? 2-3 बार किसी ने मन chant किया, and suddenly some change happens, affinity happens. I always tell these guys, because sometimes I go there in the kitchen, that you guys, must be Indian only in your previous life. You have nothing American, except your accent and some whatever, Other than that, they are a lot more immersed in the Indian culture than even I would say I am. So it's a previous life. Is where we have to think about it, that it has to be there, So he was saying that Sant Gyaneshwar mentioned in his discourses and all that he must have done a lot of punya in the previous life. That's why he got connected to Vitthal, because he has, he called it Vitthal, Krishna Bhagwan ka naam, dusra naam. So basically, having said all that, in general, what happens is most of our mind, people's mind, that run towards the worldly objects and worldly pleasures. And in the Vedantic term, they call it behind earth and calm. Earth and calm, earth is like material things, But if you have to translate into the modern language, I would say self-preservation and pleasure seeking. Those are the two main things that most of the people will run after in the world. The जो भी है सब बना रहे, like ऐसे self-preservation, I don't want to die and I want to have a healthy life. There's nothing wrong with that, but overly going after that becomes a problem and you never think about it. And pleasure seeking, I want to have fun, I want to be happy, and there's a very innate, those two are very important innate things that we have. And it's saying that even if you try to stop that habitually, it will keep going there. We know. So then what do we have to do that then? After studying the scriptures and all, okay, there's some more things have come in. Hey, it's not all about self-preservation, not all about pleasure seeking in the world, but there's something more. So then what we have to do is we have to find some way to control and quieten the mind and develop another habit, right? We were talking about how a habit you just... बट हैबिट का ये प्रॉब्लम है, उसको 1 मिनट में कोई नहीं वाइप आउट कर सकता है. वेरी पावरफुल. It's not like, oh, from tomorrow, I'm not going to do this. You try it. It's not going to happen. From tomorrow, I will sit down and meditate for 2 hours, rain or shine. It's not going to happen. So you got to slowly do it. Shane. Krishna Bhagavan already said it in this chapter. So what is the best way to tackle this? Create a new habit. And that new habit is what he's talking about as practice. So it depends on where we are in our life and how much our mind is disturbed and all that. So they have given so many different practices. It can be a japa, chanting, everyday puja, some people like that, or read some books, spiritual books, anything you can pick up. Now we are going back to the basics. We're just kind of reviewing everything that what practice thing can fit under. So because when we are doing this, physically with the speech and all that, we're engaging the mind. But the key thing is to do it every day or, most of the time. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. That's where the practice comes. It's like, oh, I want to learn swimming and I just do practice in the beginning. Once you know, then like kisi ne bola ki once you learn how to quieten your mind, you learn the technique, then you can quieten your mind even in the biggest hangama, you can do that, right? But in the beginning, we can't do that. So, I want to learn swimming and I'm just practicing once a month in the beginning. That's never going to happen. By the time you go, everything will be wiped out. Okay. So slowly and steadily, mind will develop that habit. So he's saying that once that routine is built in you, फिर क्या होगा? When you don't do it, you will feel restless. So you want to come to that stage, like people who do certain routine in the morning, if they don't do it, they will feel very restless. Like I remember my mom, her routine was without shower, she will not do anything, and without puja. I think my husband does exactly the same thing. He will feel so uncomfortable if he doesn't do that routine that it just something huge is missing in your life. So you have to come to that stage of practice. Then it's called a true practice. And he was saying, he gave a worldly example. It's like, people who go for a walk in the morning or read newspaper, unko ek din bolo ki nahi karo to wo log bahut chhatpatayenge, they're like, you have to do it. That's called creating a habit, And then, I don't know if you have heard of this joke or bolo ki kuch bhi drishtant. The word habit? Yeah, I think that Meena, she's smiling. She knows about it. If you don't know about it, it's a very interesting word. So I don't have a board here, but suppose the word habit. Everybody knows the spelling of it, right? Habit. So it's uska H nikal do, तो भी वो a bit रह जाता है. A bit, right? उसमें से A निकाल दो तो भी bit रह जाता है, थोड़ा सा रह जाता है. फिर B निकाल दो तो it रह जाता है, वो भी रह जाता है. और I निकाल दो तो T रह जाता है. तो बोलते हैं इंडियन लोगों का T का हैबिट जो है ना, वो कभी नहीं छूटता. This habit word, I thought that was such a great way कि it is so difficult कि सब कुछ निकालते जाओ तो भी वो रह ही जाता है. So he's saying that So what we need to do is, and we have discussed it, that you pick up a sadhana that is appealing and conducive to you. That's why you don't want to copy anybody. किसी को जो रूटीन बनाना होता है ना, वो अपने कंड्यूसिव और अपीलिंग जो तुमको अपील करता है, किसी को पूजा, किसी को मंत्र, किसी को ये. सो यू पिक दैट गिव्स यू सम जॉय. बट उसमें भी कभी कभी क्या होता है, ओ टुडे आज नहीं करते हैं. That kind of thing happens to us, right? Whether you like it or not, you do it every day. That's when you slowly will develop that liking. Because that rough period is going to be there in the beginning, or coming to this class or something. It's not like, hey, if I feel like going, I'll go, otherwise I won't. It's like you have to, or going to some pravachan or listening to anything. That's how you have to do it. And basically you are trying to, in this particular context of habit, we are trying to change our thinking about the Atma. So that's why they talk about mantras and all that. So just without knowing the meaning, if you chant, uska thoda benefit milega because you are taking everything out. But usme man tikega nahi itna zyada. So that's why you need to know the meaning of it. All these things. And in Bhagavad Gita, there are so many beautiful mantras that people could chant and all that. But if you know the meaning, that will remind you of the self. That's the whole idea they are telling here. And the other thing that are very, very important that Nikhilanandji brought up, that how to create good habits is, or, do abhyas is, you have to, habit of expressing good values. And this whole value ka thing is going to come in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10 se shuru hoega. Almost 9, 10, 11, 12 mein kafi values ke bare mein, and especially chapter 12 mein 35 values are there. And it's going to be, going to go in detail because that is a very, very important practice, because Krishna Bhagwan literally called those values as gyan. If you, knowledge itself. That's what's going to lead you to it. Just by thinking and all of these values, nothing is going to happen, but deeply rooted in it. That's what he was talking about. So he's saying that with that kind of value, and we'll go a little bit into it, that, how we have to develop these values. So he's saying that if you do value-based, that's when, you'll make progress. That's what he was trying to say. For example, compassion. Suppose somebody wants to be compassionate and kind. So you have to be rooted in that value. You cannot do, aaj main karungi, kal nahi, today I'm compassionate, tomorrow I'm not going to be. Then it's not going to happen. So those are the things. So basically to change that channels in our mind, it has to be continuously done, because, somebody was saying, these modern people, modern science, that their brain is not a fixed thing. It's a soft. So you can create new channels in it. We may think that hum log aadat se lachar hain, but in reality, you can change. Especially humans have been given that ability. Animals, you cannot change them. If somebody is a vegetarian, will remain vegetarian. Somebody's not, that's their program into it. But humans are not like that. So, and then this is the part for the practice part that we discussed, how you can create new practices to help us. Then the other part is vairagya. So where does that come from? So mind works according to our convictions. What do we have, what convictions we have, and that's how we will work. So अभी क्या करना पड़ेगा कि पुराने conviction छोड़ने पड़ेंगे. Because like we discussed, that we think of self-preservation and pleasure seeking. So now that we are learning that we have to, what is a new conviction? We have to drop all things that we hold falsely in our head. Change the conviction. And why conviction is changing is so important, because our own mind is encouraged, sustained, and motivated by the convictions. And the same concept is going to come in chapter 17 when Krishna Bhagavan talks about what kind of Shraddha you have. Because some people, when they talk about Shraddha, they think Shraddha is a blind belief or something. That's not what it is. Shraddha is something, a motivating force in your life. Some people can have Shraddha in the Shastras, another one will have in money, third one will have in family, or whatever you have, and your life will be driven by that. So that's what it is he's talking about. So what he's saying that habitually we saw that the mind moves into the worldly objects. And why does it move into the worldly object? Because we are somewhere convinced in our mind that these objects are real. And they are very valuable. They're going to give me joy. That's the conviction we have. If nobody told us about the Shastras, we would not even contemplate upon it. We would just, if you just go back to before you studied these things, you think the worldly things are going to give me happiness and joy. Or if I fix this situation, suddenly I'll be happy and things like that. Then we realize, no, that's not true. I think somebody's, here I have to mute this. Okay. So basically, when we study the scriptures or hear this, Shravanam jisko bolte hain, ki you hear maybe from somebody lecture, some new idea, then we have to do the deep contemplation. And then I have to literally prove it to my mind that, whatever I'm seeing in this world, there's just appearance and illusion, like we talked about, Jagat Mithya, Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. It's not real. And that it doesn't come that easy. It's a slow process. So, the real is the self and not the world that you're experiencing. That kind of thing. So, Vairagya ke arena mein ye sab aata hai, So, when we contemplate deeply and we start believing it to a certain extent, it's not going to become a very high-fi Vairagya suddenly, okay? But it will start losing its hold on you a little bit. So it loses the intensity of going towards the world, We won't take it like Tejo Mehananji said, don't take the life so seriously as though it is real, because relatively real, he calls it. That kind of thing that we have to do. So obviously, spiritual work and contemplation is very, very important, but keeping at it and slowly and steadily, you will start experiencing the illusory world. And even if you think about it, all the things that have happened in the past, it has become like a dream only. We can never go back to it, no matter how much we try. Bachpan mein maine ye kiya, wo kiya and all that. Just after a while, it's just like a dream, Only your present is what is real. So those kind of things. So he was explaining, because this is very important. He's saying this is not like the highest state yet. But even if you start believing in the flimsiness of the world and the activities that you do, that's good enough at the early stages. Because, suddenly we want, I want to become that super Vairagi and all that, no attachment, it may not happen. But even this beginning, this is good enough to hang on to, So then he's saying that we may have noticed in ourselves also, that once we see the flimsiness of certain activities in the world, and you start losing interest in those things. You don't want to go there anymore. Or certain kind of friends that you had that you were enjoying, you don't want to engage with them anymore, because you just, waste of time and all that. You start thinking like that, okay? And he was joking actually, Nikhil Anandji, saying, log puchte hain, aajkal kahan rehti hai ye? Oh, Chinmaya Mission ka ye. That may be, I'm just giving Chinmaya Mission because that's where I go, but anyway, you guys may be going other places, You say, अरे पहले तो कोई नई चीज़ आती थी, मूवी आती थी, तो भाग के सबसे पहले वो जाती थी वो मूवी में, और कोई नया मार्केट में सामान आया, कुछ आया, तो I want to be the first one and all that. अभी क्या हो गया, So he's saying this is how you're losing the hold of it, because now you are kind of seeing something more in life. And then he was trying very hard to explain what Vairagya is actually. So it's like, it's not a forced thing. And our Chinmayananji's commentary is going to come. That when you start contemplating and you start realizing not too much value in it, वो अपने आप छूटता है. Like you don't need to force it to drop it. That was a key thing that he was trying to explain. So he said it's something like, it may not be the best example, but it might give a point. He said कि जब कोई बीमार हो जाता है ना तो उसका टेस्ट खराब हो जाता है, राइट? फिर तुम उसको कोई भी खाना दो तो बोलेगा नहीं नहीं. एंड आई जिसको कोविड हुआ है, हम लोग में से कईयों को हो चुका, हाउ यू लूज द स्मेल एंड द टेस्ट. And my sister was saying too that everything tastes like a grass, like you don't enjoy the food at that time. So it may be a bad example, but what basically is like, you will lose attraction to the food. So something like that in Vairagya it is. So another very, very important point he said, Vairagya is not hatred of the world. Because that's the most important thing. Oh, world is mithya, bhaad mein jaye, ye wo, nothing like that. So it's not that he hates, or Vairagya is very deeper meaning that you have a freedom from likes and dislikes. That's the main, and that's the definition Krishna Bhagwan gave. That, sannyasi ka definition unhone wo diya ki the one who is above likes and strong likes and dislikes towards the object. मुझे ये ही चाहिए या मुझे ये नहीं चाहिए, उससे वो ऊपर उठे, that's what it is. So it's becoming free from the influence of the world. That's what the main thing is, And it's by deeply understanding that the flimsiness and the temporariness and the illusoriness of the world. So, you know that the world is there, but you just don't feel attracted towards everything that it's doing, You might still indulge in all the activities, for transactional level and all that, but you will do what you have to do. That's what it is. Because, in the family, in the business, in the, work thing and society and all, there may be certain things we have to do. They will do it very nicely for the sake of doing it. But somewhere deep inside, this person is going to know that's not my goal. To get this position, to get this, and to get the name, fame, and all that. That's not a position. That, hey, to develop this vairagya in a very strong manner, establish in it. That's the important goal. So it has to come from discrimination, means vivek, जिसको बोलते हैं ना. So इसलिए हमेशा बोलते हैं विवेक वैराग्य. वैराग्य हमेशा विवेक के बाद बोला गया है. विवेक वैराग्य. Because vivek janya vairagya means by thinking and contemplating, discriminating, that's the vairagya that you are trying to seek. That is going to be the right one. Rather than saying, oh, somebody said don't do this, so I'm going to not do this. That'll bomb on you. You won't be able to do it. So this kind of vairagya is not like becoming dry and unresponsive and nothing like that, because some people get this crazy idea about that, okay? So he's saying this particular person who is a vairagi man actually have a great love in his heart and many other great qualities, but he just knows very well about the ephemeral nature of the world, okay? So, and he knows, this person is very deeply knows that whatever he's seeking is, he's not going to get it in the world. And Krishna Bhagwan ne kai verses humne already kar liye, that this world is like a yoni of dukkha. Even if something is giving you pleasure, it's going to give you pain at the end. The same object or same situation or same thing. So all these things, this person has already kind of understood, and he's saying that how we can keep it, interacting with the Mahatmas, wise people and all that, satsang and all that, that really helps in deepening this vairagya slowly, And then he was bringing up some other text over there, which I won't get into all that. He's saying that, nothing worse, pray to God, give you vairagya. God can give us everything. He's just trying to encourage us, to do everything. So basically, twofold practice, abhyas and vairagya, and then he translated it into the English language. Vairagya is educating the mind, and abhyas is training the mind. So both the things are required, because one without the other is not going to work. Okay, so and go a little more deeper into it. That vairagya is educating mind about what? That this world is not real, and whatever I'm seeking is not in the world, but it is in the self. So learning more and more about the self. And once it is get educated, that's the time it will stop running here and there. Like before the class, we were talking about, happiness we don't even know where happiness is, learning where the actual happiness is and all that. So, and then at one point he made that, which was interesting too, that abhyas and vairagya actually, it's not only just for spiritual life, even in the world, if you want to gain anything. Even a student, he wants to study for the exam, he needs both of them. He needs a practice to study because, India mein kabhi kabhi, when I was growing up, when I was in college, everything based on the last exam. And then like people would just goof off 11 months and last mein wo kuch coaching le rahe hain, ye kar rahe hain, sweating and, but the people who did good were always people who were like, did good all year. And these other guys either failed or did really badly, who waited to the last minute. So that's what he was saying. And vairagya also, if somebody wants to achieve something, they have to have vairagya with other things. They have to say no to 100 other things to focus on this, like athlete or somebody like that. So, and then he brought another very important point, Nikhilanandji, which you may have heard of it, that Patanjali ne na, many values, he said, if you develop, eventually you will develop good practice and vairagya. And those are the list I will give you. Most of them are like in Sanskrit word, but you will understand, all are Hindi speaking. Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteya. Asteya means non-stealing. किसी दूसरे का चीज अपने को नहीं मानना और ले लेना. Brahmacharya, aparigraha, shaucham. Aparigraha means not holding too many things. Shaucham, cleanliness. Santosh, everybody knows. Tapas. Swadhyay, everyday studies. Ishwar paridhan means surrender to higher. Yam and niyam. All these are the practices you can do for developing these two things. I think that was a very good point, because sometimes you don't know where to begin with. So these things kind of help us. These are the values that we have to do. But he said that again, he brought that point that, hey, if you pick up a value, hey, this is what I believe in. For example, ahimsa. So you have to have a deep conviction about it then. You cannot be, today I'll be, tomorrow I will not. Or you say, ki, I want to be honest. But, like India mein log ghoos dete hain na, to unki limit hoti hai. I'll be honest up to this point. Uske baad, if somebody gives me, then I'll give. No, that's not going to work over here. You'll be so convinced that whole world can be on one side, you won't give that up. इतना स्ट्रांग होना पड़ेगा अगर उसमें आगे बढ़ना है, बिकॉज ये कच्चा काम नहीं चलेगा यहाँ पे. So I think those are the very important points that he brought, and he was just saying that in Ramayana, it seems that Ram Bhagwan talked about that if somebody follows this path of dharma and has conviction in it, वो गलती से भी अधर्म का उस पाथ में नहीं जाएगा. इतना strong उसका वो हो जाएगा. Like you can swear by it that, if this person is doing it, it must be the right thing to do, kind of thing. He was just saying the extreme of this kind of thing. So he's saying that these are the things that's going to help us to do this abhyas and vairagya. Those are the technique. So I think he went in a lot of detail, and Swamiji is going to have his own things to talk about when we read the commentary. But any question or comment? Anybody wants to add anything on abhyas and vairagya?
Not much, but I was just thinking about the habits, and I just thought of general, not habits about this, but if somebody wants to do as replacing it, we talked about replacing it. I thought for any action to replace it, you have to be very mindfulness needs to be there, because every time you do that action out of the habit, you have to remind yourself. I mean, if I even don't like a person, if the thought came in to me about that person, at the very moment, I have to remind myself that this is not true. This is not, unless I do that, keep on doing it, at some point I will forget about, I'll replace it with either not like or like. I'll just replace that not like to some extent to say, okay, it doesn't matter. Or, and it'll take time. But to me, it was like mindfulness.
Mindfulness is up, absolutely. And then, one practice that really kind of helped me. One time I was having difficulty with doing something. Every morning, or whenever you do your little prayer, you remind yourself of that.
Yeah.
That really helped me. Say, hey God, I'm having difficulty with this. Just please help me to do this. So
Yeah.
that little thought remains in your mind in the day then.
That, or sometimes just saying, okay, I give it at your feet. I'm leaving
Yeah.
because I cannot handle it.
Right. Surrendering, and then you will see that some strength will come from somewhere, and and mindfulness will be there, And the worldly example I was thinking is, like suppose if I want to eat less sugar. In the beginning the tea will taste really terrible. But then after you create that habit, फिर कोई मीठी चाय दे के आएगा ना तब तो it looks so bad. So this practice ka thing is a practical example in front of us, that whatever we start practicing, we start liking it after a while.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So,
and that becomes a habit. So
yes.
we have replaced the
Yes,
other habit.
that's exactly what they're talking about. That's how the practice is. So that's why, like, sometimes when you approach some swami or something, India mein wo tradition hai na mantra dene ka vagara vagara. So in मतलब इससे क्या हो जाएगा, why they are saying, but they have a reason. They want you to just get your mind away from somewhere and put it in this, and then it will become contemplative. पहले तो contemplative ही नहीं होगा.
Right.
दुनिया का ही भरा हुआ होगा उसमें. So it is like, the reason I know this, because in Hare Krishna temple, for them, that their mantra is everything.
Oh.
The Hare Krishna mantra chanting is the biggest part of their sadhana. Once they take the vow of brahmachari or whatever they do, unko 2.5 hours, they have to do 16 rounds of 108 beats. They take a vow to do that every day.
To me, that always surprised. Am I counting the beats? Or
No, but I go and I cook with those people once in a while, right? They are very young. They are 22, like that years old. They are actually singing in joy. They are not doing it as mechanical. They actually love it. Because sometimes I asked them, and they said, we may not understand it, the science of it, but the vibration and things like that, it cleanses your mind of negativity. You and me, scientific minded people may not think that way. They have 100% faith in it, and it is working for them. So it is like, जैसे बोलते ना कि cleaning the house every day.
Yeah.
That's how they use it.
Cleaning the mind with it.
But it can keep elevating you. Then, they study Bhagavad Gita, they do Bhagavatam, they read their other scriptures and all that. Then it sinks in more. That's an early preparation for them. But they wake up at 4 a.m. and then they have time to do their, some people who can do a little faster, they can do faster. We might look at it as a mechanical and things like that. They have tremendous Shraddha in it. Tremendous. And it has worked for them, because I see that result over there. So, something to think about these things, that sometimes the practices can be simple but very powerful.
Yeah, to me it's like, okay, I just don't want to say Om or Ram and think of something else, because I'm just repeating that.
True. And that's why they said, you pick what is conducive to you. So if, for me also, I'll enjoy more reading, listening to some discourse from the Swamis and all. That is for me. But that may not be good for other people. So whatever takes your mind away from the world and more towards this sadhana, that's what you should be doing.
So it's not like repeating the mantra all the time, that's going to take away, right? Because to me, it was like everybody keeps on saying, have your special mantra.
For them, that's what I'm trying to say, that we may be judging them, but it does work for them, those guys.
Yeah, but
that's all I'm saying. It may not work for you, and you might find it repeating. They don't look at it that way.
But our Gurudev never gave a mantra.
True.
He didn't believe.
That's so the people usually, you see that most of the people who come to Chinmaya Mission, they are, पहले वो बड़े नास्तिक हुआ करते थे. फिर suddenly, like engineers, doctors. I'm not saying all engineers and doctors are nastic, but
Yeah.
मेरे को reason, but Chinmayanand ji is good at it. Okay, he will bring the science, he'll bring this, he'll bring the logic and all that. That's one path. So you are at the right place because that's what you like. But I understood the value of those other guys after I started associating with them. You know, they also study, they also go into logic and all those things, but their initial sadhana is this. And in the beginning, it may be they may finding it difficult to do, but somehow they had shraddha in their guru and they just did it, and it worked for them. You know, it's like a farmer. Suppose somebody doesn't know anything about farming. Just an example. Somebody doesn't know anything about farming, and you say, you go and plow it, you clean it, you do all this, and then the flower will come. And beginning of like, kya? Every day I'm doing nothing is happening, And then finally the flower did come, So that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
उमा जी एक और बात है कि when your mind is very agitated,
Yeah.
you can start reciting any mantra and the agitation will come down.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Because agitation is because we are thinking of 100 different thoughts. Agitation always comes, if you see the science of agitation is, ye ho jayega, wo ho jayega, like it's a racing mind or some bull gathering. Half of the time hoga bhi nahi kuch, And so what you're arresting your mind and you're putting in something. So automatically go down, or some breathing exercise or yoga or something, And like, sorry, go ahead.
Anilji, are you suppressing it, or what are you doing when you do that? I mean, okay, if too many thoughts are coming in your mind, and then you start japa, are you suppressing that, or what are you doing at that point? To me, like I have to be mindful of it. To what I'm thinking, why the thoughts are coming. To me, I have to go back to my mind. But you're saying, okay, you do the japa or any japa, and that will calm you, right?
Right. And that's because your mind is running in so many different directions.
Right.
On its own. So now you have some kind of a control over it. That you are now concentrating on one mantra, so the mind cannot run into so many other things. It is now concentrating on that mantra only. And when the mind is not running into different things, very soon it starts to calm down. It works for me. Even at night sometimes, sometimes it happens that I wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and I can't fall back to sleep. But if I start reciting a mantra, in 3 minutes I'm out again.
Excellent. I think what you are saying is one step ahead. But in the beginning, अगर mind इतना restless है जैसा अनिल जी बोल रहे हैं, तो ये टेक्निक बहुत अच्छी है. But eventually you have to समझाओ your mind too. मगर जो restless होएगा उसको समझाना भी तो मुश्किल है. Right? So what you are talking about step number 2. Now, suppose इनका तो ये he's talking about night time. It's a beautiful technique because the basic idea at night time is you're not sitting and contemplating. You want to go to sleep. So you're achieving that. Say daytime pe your mind is all agitated. You did the mantra and now your mind is arrested. Now bring it back to Geeta and all that.
Yes.
That's what it is. So अगर beginning में अगर कोई बहुत जैसे इसको देख लो, गीता में देख लो. First chapter में Arjun's mind was very agitated. कृष्ण भगवान ने ज्ञान नहीं शुरू किया. जब उसका एजिटेशन कम हुआ थोड़ा, 1-2 बातें उसको बोली, थोड़ा डांटा वाटा उसको, फिर उसका एजिटेशन, तब उसको बोला. So this japa technique is to do that calming.
And that's how meditation also works. Because when you start meditating initially, then you develop some vairagya. And then next time you go to meditation, the meditation is a bit deeper and you get more vairagya. And then you start to feel the joy of it. And then you keep doing that cycle, and very soon your vairagya develops a lot.
So Swamiji is going to talk about this, what Anilji is saying. These जो practice बोला ना, अभ्यास और वैराग्य, they are complementary to each other.
Yes.
That's what he talked about. Abhyas develops vairagya, vairagya develops abhyas.
Right.
But another very important point, he said that when they talk about these values, or sorry, these techniques and all that, so they gave, पहले अभ्यास बोला फिर वैराग्य बोला, because he said अगर तुम्हारा वैराग्य deep नहीं है तो भी शुरू कर दो. Right? Abhyas is a very important thing, because whole time reading, doing this, practical में तुम नहीं करोगे तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला. So that's why abhyas has become so important. Begin somewhere.
So, Umaji, which one is, I mean, you mentioned first educating the mind and then training the mind.
No, he's saying ulta, Prabhakar ji.
Yeah, he's training the ulta. But the point is, which one should do it first?
I would say do it simultaneously.
Training or abhyas and training.
Simultaneously. Yeah, and see which one catches up with you. But suppose if you are doing educating too much and you're not starting abhyas, तो फिर भी problem होएगा ना. और अभ्यास करते जा रहे वो, जैसे कि then वो mechanical हो जाएगा. If you are not educating and telling, like Meena ji saying, these people in the Hare Krishna they're talking about, they are not only just chanting, they are studying. They study Geeta and they do all that. But वो chanting से ना mind prepare हो जाता है थोड़ा उनका. That's what it is. Quieten हो जाता है, prepare हो जाता है. So all these things have to be taken holistically.
Okay.
But the reason he put abhyas, because of the same danger. कई लोग बोलते हैं ना, I will start my spiritual journey जब सारे काम मेरे खत्म हो जाएंगे, मैं वृद्ध हो जाऊंगी and all. तो कोई बोला कि वृद्ध हो जाएंगे तो ना सुनाई देगा, ना पढ़ सकेंगे, ना कुछ नहीं कर सकेंगे. Or like, this requires a lot of involvement, right? That's why you have to start early. और क्लास में मैं जब जाऊंगी तभी मेरा सारा काम खत्म हो जाएगा, तो कभी खत्म होने वाला ही नहीं है काम. Impossible. So what we'll do is, it's already within Swamiji's commentary is also very, very beautiful. We will read it next time, because this was a very important verse. So even if we give 2 different classes for it, it will be great, right? So we can, any other point or question, or anybody wants to add anything to this?
So one more point is that you mentioned about the dispassion and non-attachment. And sometimes it happens that momentarily you become dispassionate and non-attached, but after some time you become attached and passionate. And I mean, I don't know what technique one can use to really continue the path of non-attachment and dispassionate. How do you really, that moment when it comes, like you like coffee, you became dispassionate and non-attached to the coffee for say 2 weeks. I'm just giving an example. And then suddenly you go to somebody's house and coffee smells very nice. And then you will drink it. And you continue to drink for another 1 week. So, I mean, how do you really...
You got cut off, Prabhakarji, but... Yeah, your internet stopped working for some reason.
Yeah.
I think I understood your question. So that, according to Bhagavad Gita and Krishna Bhagwan, that's where he talked about, studying the Shastras, contemplating it, and deeper and deeper. Because the more we stay and give that heat to so-called heat, we will start believing in it that the world does not give us pleasure. And then we have to, contemplation meaning we have to analyze our own life. I thought I'll be happy with this. Mm-hmm. Was I? If that was true, then why am I unhappy today? Right? Okay. So all that contemplation and all that, and then, learning more and more Vedanta, I think that will give you that vairagya. And very important thing, vairagya doesn't mean, I give up the world or hate the world or anything. It's like I indulge in it. I just know that happiness is not going to be there. So in case something gives me unhappiness, I should know that, hey, this is a part of it anyway. Why am I bothered? Mm-hmm. That's all. So I think that by continuously keeping at this, we will develop that. It's hard, but it can be done, for sure. That's exactly what Krishna Bhagavan said in this. He said, yes, it is hard, but here is the technique. And then unless we sincerely try this technique, we should not say discount this also, right? We have to sincerely try it, both the things.
तो मुझे एक चीज और इसमें इन्होंने कहा है कि जो ये एग्जांपल कॉफी का दे रहे थे, if you force yourself to give up coffee for 2 weeks and then you go to somebody's house and you smell coffee and you are back in it again, that's not the way to do it. You do not force yourself to give up anything. You develop a dispassion for it.
Very good point.
Slowly.
Yes. Yeah, and I
you
think
will not harm.
right. And since you are in the medical field anyway, certain food by habit we love it, right? Then we educate ourselves. Oh my God, this gives me this problem and all that, And the most famous example is sugar for diabetes and all that. Okay, if I know that kind of harm it can do, अपने आप देख के aversion हो जाएगा. Right? That's educating the mind. It's like now, these days, I don't know, I saw some movie and उसमें इतना horrible picture दिया ना tobacco का. I don't know whether you came across that. I had to close my eyes. कि ये tobacco से ये होता है, बोला इसको देख के कोई पागल ही होगा जो smoke करेगा और सब. They're trying to scare the hell out of them. Then you will automatically कि भाई इससे नुकसान क्या हो सकता है. That's educating the mind. Then कितना भी सुंदर हो, कितना भी अच्छा हो, किसी ने बोला, कोई हमारी टीचर बोलती थी, कोई कितना अच्छा खाना है और तुम खाने चले और कोई बोलता अरे इसमें पोटेशियम साइनाइड है. तो बोले कि खाली उसका थॉट भी जब तुम बोलो फेंको इसको. I don't care how much लड्डू I like, शायद हो भी नहीं उसमें, कोई बोल भी देगा तो हम फेंक देंगे. So that's what the key thing is, because we are not convinced yet. So just by studying, we'll get convinced that the world does not give us happiness. Okay, so I'm going to close Bhagavad Gita here. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhya moksha ishyami ma shuchah. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.